Community, welcome back to another Keeping It Real with Dr. Anita podcast. I am your host, Dr. Anita Polite Wilson, C-Suite Trusted Advisor and Board Director, helping members of the C-Suite and their teams reframe diversity conversations from difficult to different. You know, it's our third conversation with Pat Wadors, the CHR at UKG. And the third conversation is always bittersweet for me because I look forward to having this conversation with my guests, but it's our last one. So we're just going to jump right in. In our last conversation, we talked about shadow leaders and being vulnerable and the fact that sometimes people still confuse weakness with vulnerability when actually it takes courage and bravery. And we're going to be talking about strengths, which is one of my favorite subjects. I am a Gallup certified strengths coach. And I'm always looking for ways to help teams leverage strengths in a meaningful, reinforcing way that supports diversity. So, Pat, my question for you is, how can strengths promote diversity in the workplace?
Oh, I love that question. So for me, I'm just thinking pragmatically. I always think about what do I do with strengths? And at my staff level, at my direct team level, I'm very, very clear about why they're at that table.
Mm-hmm.
You're here because you are a lightning rod to employee morale. It takes you 30 minutes to walk 15 feet because people just want to open up. You care, they love you. I know the pulse of the employees because of your connection. And this person over here is the optimist. This person's the pessimist. This is the data person. This person's the systems thinker. And there are differences in their experience. One comes from retail and how they think its scale is more complex than what I've done over here. And the showing them the matrix in my brain of why they're different, not only in what they do, but how they do it and how they approach a problem is what makes them a high performing team.
Mm-hmm.
And you take that all the way down. And then I try to even make it more robust about what's missing around that table because I can't fit every box.
Yep.
Right. So, I worry about if there's 8 of us that are all introverted. Gosh, I really need that extroverted energy. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I worry about everyone coming from a tech background and how we've developed our expectations in the world. It's not the same as our customers. So how do I bring the voice of the customer in? And so I try to reverse engineer a lot about what is it that I'm missing and their strengths and how it would add to the capability in the dialogue. When that occurs with intentionality or we know our gaps, so we seek it, we have invited guests at our table, like we really need the operator, bring the operator in. Come on, let's go. Like push on this, show me my weakest link.
Yep.
Show me how this could break.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the most fun conversations I get to have. So leveraging strengths, being clear why I'm embracing their strength that's different than mine. It is teaching my team also to invite others in to compensate for their gaps, but yet showcase who they are and why they're so unique. And they get invited to dialogues they never thought they'd have influence on. That to me is kind of sexy. I think that's fun.
I love how you said you've got people at the table for a reason and you let them know what that reason is. And I'm always telling people, especially young professionals out of college going in for perhaps their first, adult job, that you've been invited to the table for a reason. So show up being very confident that no one's expecting you to sound like anybody else. No one's expecting you to have the experiences of anybody else. You're there at the table for you. So be prepared. And I'm thinking about our first conversation where you mentioned questions and how, you love to come up with questions. I have also tried to encourage people, look, whenever you come to a meeting, you need to be prepared with one good question to ask, one insightful comment to share, and just to be involved in the conversation. And I think that's so important that we recognize what we bring to the table is just as valuable as anybody else's. And now I'm thinking about a story that Brene Brown mentioned. I think it was one of the first times that she was speaking to a large group and it was a bunch of CEOs. And she was all comfortable until she peered around the corner and looked at all these people. And she said, what am I going to say to them? They're all CEOs. I'm not a CEO. I don't know how to do this. And the person next to her said, they're not here for you to talk to them like a CEO. They know that stuff. They're here for you to talk to them about what you know that they don't. And even myself, sometimes I have to bring it down and remind myself, yes, I'm talking to CEOs, but they don't want to hear what CEO stuff that I know because they've got that. They want to know what I bring to the table. Mm-hmm. And so we have to remember, if we're invited to the table, sit at the table and bring what you've been asked to bring and present it with love and integrity, and use your strengths, right? Just show up and use your strengths.
Just show it up. What's interesting when you think about driving change in an organization, you have 10 people and one person feels other, right?
Mhm.
They're the lone voice of whatever that thing is. But that's why they were hired, because of this different point of view. We naturally want to normalize to the team norms to fit in.
Mhm.
You got to fight that. That's Dr. Nee, that's what you're saying. Fight that natural inclination to fit in, because you were hired to be different. You're hired for that one strength, two strengths, three strengths that you brought to that table. When you feel in doubt, like I've had in my past, I've sought advocates around that table. Look, I know y'all brought me in because I'm creative on these things. When you see that I'm not rumbling with you and debating with you enough on how we show up, can you ask me a question and invite me to speak if you think I'm too quiet?
Mhm.
And, one or two people that I really trust, and they'll text me or they'll like stop the meeting. Like, I really want to hear what Pat has to say right now. I'm like, yes, I have thoughts. I will stop talking. And I'm like, thank you. So there's ways to get heard. So you elevate and showcase your strengths. Don't be quiet. Do it with grace, like you said.
Something occurs to me as we're having this conversation. Why is it that it's essential for businesses to identify their differentiator, but we want people in the organization not to be different?
I I would challenge us that they actually do want us to be different, but they want us to be different in a couple dimensions, not in all dimensions. I think that's the challenge. We want engineers, we want the analytics, we want the sales, we want that extroverted person to do blank, right? The marketing. So we want differences in skills. We want that. But when it gets to be so complex in a room, in a meeting with differences of style, and someone's super direct, well, I'm just a New Yorker, I'm direct. Like they use that excuse, whatever. But everyone's like, I'm startled, I'll just get quiet. Like,
Mhm.
you as a leader have to navigate these stylistic differences and bring them all out. You have to have situational leadership. I love that course. I'm bringing that back. I think that's
Right? It
being
was a
bigger.
great course.
It's a great course. And like, to truly get magic is to bring all those in the ecosystem together. You cannot have an amazing company without putting product and engine go to market together. You can't. So same logic should hold true with the human. Same logic. We just have to bring it down and make it more pragmatic.
When you talk about complex, I think about what I always say. We want to make sure that we're reframing diversity conversations from difficult to different. Difficult is hard, different is complex. And in no way are we saying these conversations are not complex. They are. But if we just get used to the fact that they're just different, it
Yeah.
helps us to move forward a little bit. So when we talk about complexity and different, as a highly rated LinkedIn instructor, what flexible strengths are transferable from your courses and what you and your leaders do every day?
You know, so my courses were interesting. So for my LinkedIn courses, what I talked about, one was about diversity, inclusion, belonging, and the power of belonging. And when the creation of that course actually was enlightening, because they would script you. They'd want you to be scripted. They put you in chapters, sub chapters. This is the flow. This is the timing. Rehearse you, time you, make sure it can fit in a box of X time, etc. And with my processing disorder, I cannot be scripted. It just does not work for me, because then I focus more on the process than I do on content.
Right.
And so in any of my courses, that none of them are scripted. They're like this. They're they're conversational in nature. But the purpose of doing the courses, and I'm an introvert, I was nervous, was to just create a moment in time for you to breathe and think through at a human level, at a personal level. What does it mean to want belonging? How can I give belonging?
Yeah.
Because if I can give a sense of belonging to someone, you get more connected to your community. So I teach to give, to change. If I can improve one person's life in anything I do, I have fulfilled my purpose. And so That's the point of any of my talks, meeting with you, is like, if I can just give you more energy in your gas tank to go and do the best you possible, then I'm going to smile all day long. That feeds my soul. And I did a course in diversity, inclusion, belonging, introduced DIBS, told some stories, why it matters, some science behind it, for the folks that love the numbers. I talked about employee experience, because belonging is embedded in the DNA of how we show up every day. It's multiple points throughout the day. It's a million moments of how you welcome someone in the morning, and stop and say, how are you? And pause to listen. Those things are free. They're human. They're connecting. They're amazing. And you learn. And part of it was to remind me of my superpower. I want to connect, and as an introvert with a few people, but how do I teach others to connect over and over again and not fear it? Right. And so that's the purpose of my courses, is to give a little, to push myself out of my own comfort zone, to have people think what they can give back to at the same time.
That is a beautiful sentiment. I'm trying to hold it together here. Teaching to give. That's why we do what we do. Pat Wadors, thank you so much for connecting with me, for allowing me to just, when we first met, gush all over you, and the fact that you're into belonging as much as I am. Thank you for sharing with my community. Community, I know you have to be feeling good right now. And I know that if you listen to this podcast again, you're just going to feel good all over again. So I invite you to check it out again on the website, dranita.com. At the top of the homepage, find the Keeping It Real podcast link. Go there, enjoy this again, listen, share, and get it out there to your network. Belonging is not just the catchphrase of, the time. It's real, and it's important, and it's everywhere in society. People want belonging in their schools. They want belonging in the workplace. They want belonging in their neighborhoods. And we're not going to get anywhere with just diversity, with just inclusion, with just equity. Belonging is the foundation of it all, because if we don't feel like we belong to each other and a cause, we're not going to be able to move forward. So please, I invite you to listen to this series with Pat Wadors, the CHRO of UKG, again and again and again. In the meantime, this is Dr. Anita reminding you to stay blessed and keep it real. Oh, that was so good. I even forgot how I normally end my own show. That was fantastic, Pat. Thank you so much.